the competition, so we all know about the tools. So I'll be back in a minute.
Well, on behalf of Chris, I think I can speak for Chris when I first say thank you all for being here this morning, because as we speak, literally this very second, there are thousands of Atlantans calling their bosses because they're sick. Right? Now we know they just stayed up too late last night waiting for the election results to come in. I love my job. All right. I've got 3 stories to share with you this morning. The first 2 are really short, so let's watch the first one. Let's not watch the first one until I turn up the volume. How about that? 3 stories with a common theme. And here's the first one.
An old man noticed that at the far end of his neighborhood, a building was being constructed. One morning he got up and decided to take a walk and see what was going on. When he arrived, he was excited to find that the bricks were being laid for the foundation. He went up to the first man and asked him, "What are you doing?" And the mason replied, "I am laying bricks." A few hours later, he went up to another man and asked him the same question, "What are you doing?" And the mason replied, "I am building a church." Later that afternoon, he went up to a third man and asked him, "What are you doing?" The mason replied, "I am building the house of God." Later that evening, as the old man was getting ready for bed, it occurred to him. The first man had a job. The second man had a career. And the third man had a purpose.
The story of the 3 bricklayers is a parable about the power of purpose. You might have heard it before, maybe in a little bit different version. A lot of churches and different religions teach this story to their congregations and in their services, but it's not just about church. It's not about building a house of God. It's about purpose. It's about 3 different men all performing the same task, but looking at their job a little bit differently. Here's the second story.
There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So I'm pretty sure that all of you have probably heard that speech. That speech was actually a little bit more than an hour long. But we choose to go to the moon. Kennedy gave that speech, and that kind of launched the United States into the space race, right? We wanted to walk on the moon before Russia did. The story is not about that particular speech. The story actually happens before that speech. Rice University is located in Houston, Texas. And Kennedy gave that, boo, right, how appropriate. Kennedy gave that speech in the afternoon at about 2 o'clock. That morning, he was given a tour of the NASA Space Center in Houston, Texas. And he was given a tour by the folks at NASA that were in the space race. Today, that facility is called the Johnson Space Center, but at the time, it was just called the NASA Space Center. It's on Galveston Bay. Kennedy was really excited about the trip, and the story goes that he was just like a kid in a candy shop. He's with the Secret Service and Vice President Johnson and cabinet members and probably dignitaries and politicians from Texas, getting a tour of NASA. How cool is that? He was going up to everybody, Kennedy was, asking them, "What do you do here? What do you do here? What do you do here?" And everybody was giving him their responses, right? Well, I'm in charge of the rocket fuel. I'm in charge of the spacesuits. I'm an engineer and I'm doing the re-entry procedures. And he walked in the hall to another place where he was visiting, and he passed a man carrying a mop. And he asked him, "What do you do here?" "Duh," The man said, "I'm putting a man on the moon." Pretty cool answer. Kennedy was beside himself. So our bricklayer and our janitor, obviously, share something in common. And what they share is a purpose, a direction, a reason. They know the answer to the question, what is your why, in their jobs. Very clear. Building a house of God, putting a man on the moon. They have a mission, a vision, and values, just like we do. Now, everyone's job contains adversity. You have adversity in your job, right? Adversity are those obstacles, those things that pop up that prevent us from doing our job, but never deter us from our purpose. They're just things that we have to overcome. So the bricklayer, he's got adversity, he's got obstacles. Bricks can be heavy. You have to carry them to where they're putting them in, right? They don't just, the truck doesn't come and just put the stack here and the stack right here for the next one. You got to carry those things over. That's obstacles. When you're laying bricks, you wear the skin off your fingers. I've never seen a mason or a bricklayer wear gloves when they do it. They need to be able to feel what they're doing, get everything plumb and level. They have to mix the mortar right. And they can't go too high before they have to stop or the wall is going to fall over. So there's obstacles to a bricklayer's job, adversity, for sure. But he's building a house of God. The janitor, they've got obstacles too, right? Well, they have to deal with smells. They have to work with chemicals. They have to mix them correctly. They don't want to be overcome by mixing the wrong chemicals to clean stuff with. They can't leave wet surfaces or somebody's going to slip with that mop. They got to clean everything really well. And they're actually touching other people's stuff, aren't they? But that janitor was putting a man on the moon, and he had obstacles and adversity in his job. They had obstacles and barriers, but to say it another way, they have their eyes on the prize. They know what their purpose is. Said in even different way, they see the big picture. So our janitor and our bricklayer have purpose. And the third story is very familiar to you, unless you've been living under a rock for the last month. If you've been living under a rock, you haven't heard the story that we all know that I'm getting ready to tell that's happened over the course of the last month. Because you all have radios, cell phones, computers, television, on and on and on. Just by virtue of the fact that you live in Atlanta, you know this story. Because you can't get away from it. Whether you're a baseball or a Braves fan or not, you have been hearing for a month about the Atlanta Braves, have you not? And every single story that you've heard talks about adversity. Every single story. Every player for the Braves, every manager, every coach, everybody who's been interviewed or written articles or talked about it always is asked, well, the Braves, you've come over so much adversity this year. Ad nauseum, you're hearing the word adversity. And I was like, God, the adversity started for them on opening day, April the 1st, way back when. Well, we lost to the Phillies. It was our first game, but that really wasn't when the adversity started. The first adversity started on April the 2nd because they decided to move the All-Star game. That's day 2 of the season. And every Brave and every coach and every manager had to be interviewed over the course of the next month and a half. Well, what do you think about the All-Star game getting pulled from Atlanta? And they all said something similar to, well, we're just focused on the game and playing and, making our fans happy and keeping each other together and working up. And that's okay. That's Major League Baseball's decision, not ours, blah, 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 blah. And later they found out that they moved the All-Star game to Colorado. But for a month and a half, the adversity was all over the place. Then in May, our starting pitchers, who hadn't even pitched in a game yet, couldn't start because he re-injured his Achilles heel. Mike Soroka was out for the season. Great. Strike what? 4 now? 5? On May 29th, Marcell Ozuna. Cops came knocking on his door and he left the team. One of our best hitters. Okay, great. And June rolls around. And guess what? Everybody in Braves country wanted to know, when are we going to get to 500? It's June already. Then on July 10th, 3 days before the All-Star game, Ronald Acuna Jr. out with a torn ACL in his shoulder because he hit the wall catching a baseball. Great. Oh my God, it's not this again. Right in the middle of the season. So we hear all of this adversity and all the players are being asked about, overcoming all of this adversity, which makes the story even that much better, given what happened last night, right? But there were some pretty good things that happened in the season. And the one thing that struck me through this whole thing was, with all of this adversity that the Braves were going through the first half of their season, somebody forgot to tell the Braves that they were going through all this stuff because they had purpose. They had their eyes on the prize. Because a lot of great things actually happened this season to the Braves. They broke records and met records that we don't remember now at the end of the season. We just focus on the adversity that they had to go through to get there. Because on May the 21st, we happened to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates 20-1. Now that wasn't the biggest score in Major League Baseball, but it was the first time in the history of the sport that we hit 2 grand slams and 7 home runs in a single game. The record before that was 2 grand slams and 3 home runs. Between July the 29th and August 22nd, we won 13 straight away games, road games. That's tied for second in the major leagues. 13 straight away games. And during that time, on August the 5th, when we played St. Louis on the 3rd game, we got over 500 in August. There's only 2 months left in the season. On September the 4th, Ozzie Albies hit his 25th home run. You might say, big deal. There's a lot of people that hit more than 25 home runs in a year. But it's only the second time in Major League Baseball history that the starting infield for a team all hit 25 or more home runs. So Freeman and Swansby and Riley are sitting there, come on, Ozzie, we need that 25th. It's only happened twice in baseball where the infield all had 25 or more home runs. And then finally, when we played the Phillies on September the 30th, with 3 games left in the season, we won the division and got into the playoffs. But there was more adversity to come. On October the 14th, Jorge, the MVP of the game, the MVP of the World Series, he was out for 2 weeks with COVID. And then October 27th, everybody knows Charlie Morton broke his leg in the 2nd game of the World Series. More adversity. We're so focused on obstacles and barriers, the media in particular. All of us, we've had conversations amongst ourselves and with our friends, and it's always about overcoming this adversity, not the good stuff. The Braves had obstacles and barriers to overcome, but they never made excuses. You never heard them say, yeah, but. Never, never. They always talked about lifting each other up, giving something back to our fans. They had, just like our janitor and our bricklayer, a purpose. They knew the answer to the question, what is my why? I try to think of what the purpose of the Braves player would be. They're not putting men on the moon. They're not building the house of God. It popped into my head that maybe their purpose is to win the World Series. But that's wrong. Because winning the World Series is a goal, not a purpose. You don't play baseball to win the World Series. That's a goal. That can be measured in time and by numbers. A purpose can't. A purpose comes from within you. It's a reason for doing what you're doing. I was actually lucky enough, after a lot of research, to find out that what the Braves' mission statement is. And it's kind of small, so I'm going to read it. I hope you don't mind. The Atlanta Braves want to make a difference in our community. First sentence. Winning is obviously our goal. But just as important is the mark the Atlanta Braves leaves on the lives of our fans, especially our young fans. The more involved we get in the community, the more enriched our lives and the lives of our fans will be. The Braves' connection and commitment to our neighbors reaches far beyond the walls of Truist Park. It extends to the hearts and homes of the many people that support our team. We will work rigorously to improve the quality of life and share our love of baseball with our community. And just like we have integrity, dependability, confidence, communication, and competence, they have live, learn, play, serve. That's their purpose. I did myriads of research on this story because I'm a Braves fan. I'm over the moon about the win last night. One of the stats that I came across was the 2021 regular season attendance. It's a really small list here. You can't really see it, but these are the 30 Major League Baseball teams, and these are the number of home games they played and the total number of seats, total number of tickets they sold for the year. And up at the top of the list, I'll make it bigger for you, was the LA Dodgers. They sold 2.8 million tickets to baseball games for the 2021 regular season, not playoffs included. So all of the 30 teams are equal. Number 2 was the Atlanta Braves at 2.3 million. Now I went, wait a minute, it's a 500,000 seats over 81 games, 80, 78, 80, 81 games. I thought, surely the Braves love Atlanta more than Los Angeles loves the Dodgers, don't they? So I took Dodger Stadium, which seats 56,000 people. They had 81 home games, which means if they sold out every home game, they'd had a 4.5 million tickets, but they only sold 2.8 million. That's 62%. And I thought, wow, that seems low to me. I would have thought that a Major League Baseball team would have higher than 62% attendance, even the number 1 team that sold the most seats. So I'm a smart guy. I started doing some math. Using the same math for the Houston Astros at Minute Maid Stadium with 41,000 seats in 81 games, they were at 62%. Surprised me. I thought, was that the standard? Let me take a look at some of the other teams. The Phillies, 45%. The Mets, 36. I'm going the wrong way. I was looking for something more than 62. I thought, hey, how about this? San Diego Padres. They were a hot team. 67%. Okay. Now I'm finding something that I'm thinking is the right reason. St. Louis, 58. Oh, the Yankees. They've been around for forever. Boston. Guess who's number 1? Our purpose is to play for our fans. Damn right it is. I can't ask you to tell you that your purpose for working with this company is to buy into this. If it's not, I think that's okay. Chris might have something different to say about that. But if your purpose is not, in working at the Trusted Toolbox, is not to provide 110% customer experience, that's okay. But you have to know that it's the company's purpose. So at least make it your goal.